because you're not as close to him as I am. I'm just messing. You know I'm messing with you. Okay, we are on. Service went just a little bit longer this morning, but I tell you, came away with things to think about. It was really good. So, that's true. Okay, everybody, we are starting in Exodus. Exodus is a long book. And then I'm not even sure how, somewhere toward the end, we're supposed to do a little bit of Leviticus. I'm not worried so much about Leviticus. But, and I forgot to put up the new posters and things, so I apologize for that. And I'll get them up before next Sunday. Um, we do have new books. And if you notice, we've got some cleaner chairs for y'all to be sitting on. And thankful for George and myself, and Fred came in at the last doing a scrubbing of chairs. George, you think we need to do it another round? They look better. They definitely look better. Yeah, some of it is permanently. So I have got I got a question for y'all. This is kind of sort of related to the book of Exodus, but it was just when I start thinking about getting ready for Sunday school, I'll start thinking about it generally toward the beginning of the next week. Doesn't mean I start diving in, but this was a thought question that I had because we're going to be following an what group of people are we going to be following? We're going to how God developed and moved the Jewish people as His nation. So I asked Fred the question. I thought I knew the answer, but I thought, let me see if he knows it. Let us see if our two nations agreed, two questions agreed. And then I went online and did some more digging. Okay. When did the nation, as a Jewish nation, disappear from history? There is a specific time that it, in essence, disappeared. Eight, no, but a good guess. I'll just say go further back. No, but go a little bit further this way. Yeah, you're getting good. When the when the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom had separated, okay, but then what eventually happened to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom? They were conquered, drug off in captivity. And the southern kingdom lasted about 200 years longer than the northern kingdom. So if you're looking at when did Israel cease to exist as a nation, it was like 700 and something BC for the southern kingdom, 900 and something BC for the northern kingdom. Northern kingdom fell, and I don't know why that hit me. When did Israel, um, and after that, it became do you remember why God let them fall? I'm stretching stuff out. What'd they do? Sin. And remember, it was the northern kingdom had generations of horrible kings, and they fell first. Southern kingdom had some righteous kings, and they did not fall. But Israel disappeared as a country, period, because Israel was conquered by people after people after people. up through the Muslims and Turks, and you could just go on and on and on. So when finally did Israel get reconstituted as the state of Israel? 46, it was going on 47. Yeah. So when you think about it, from 900 BC to 1046 AD, over 2,000 years, the country of Israel didn't exist. So if we look at God's hand upon Israel, remember the phrase, there's always a remnant. There was always a heart of God's people left over till in 1947. Uh, UN nation, UN. Okay. How did this break out? Because you was talking about the tribes of Israel. So were these tribes north and south? Or did they split apart? Well, they were conquered. Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom did did still considered Israel, but they were considered two states. That's not a good analogy. But then the northern kingdom was conquered by, I think, the Assyrians. Then the southern kingdom finally fell. And you won't find the state of Israel mentioned anywhere in those, I don't know, 1900 years. You'll find the area referred to as Palestine. But then after World War II, United Nations established the state of Israel. Because remember, too, one of the reasons you got this whole masses of Jewish population after World War II that had been moved, or 7 million were killed. And so it was considered to become a homeland. I just. They didn't get all of it. Oh, no. No. I, I was. It was interesting. I did more reading on that because it really caught my eye. And so I found it, but I couldn't find it last night on my laptop. I'll print it out for you. I'll keep looking. And it did a great job of the history of the nation of Israel going all the way back to the northern and southern kingdoms, even prior to that. So if you love history like I do, and the where I found brings it all the way up to 2023, where Hamas attacked Israel. So I'll bring it next week for those that are interested in it. Take one if you're not interested. No, it's not on Bible Gateway. It was at the website history.com. And it seemed to be a very factual account. It didn't seem to be biased where we hate Israel, we love the Palestinians. It was just a factual dun 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 happened. So I'll get you a copy. I thought it was really good. Hmm. The Crusades. But there was still. But it continued to still get. The people were conquered. The people that, from what I read, as a nation did not stand alone. Now, because there were other, even with Rome, Israel was subject to Rome. So what it was saying was, Kendall, I'll look it up for you. We can all look it up maybe and look at it together. The point of this particular resource said that it never stood alone on its own as an independent nation. They're subject to, yeah. Okay, they were no longer an independent nation. Right. They had to answer to Rome. So a good point there. So anyway, I'll bring it. Y'all can take it home and digest it, and see what you think. So seen and heard. Here we go. Um, the somebody's not happy out there. At least it's not ours. Yeah, it would be really bad if it was. Oh my, uh, it's okay, and we're going to encounter the name, the word Yahweh. And one of the points I'm just making on this Yahweh God, who is it? He knows our name. The funny part was identifying the cry. You know, you may be connected of a child to that cry. When huh? Oh, you know what kid? You knew his name, Carl. Oh, in your class. Um, when Kara was born, Kara did not really love anybody but me and her daddy. So I would be teaching Sunday school class at our other church, Glen Burnie, be teaching away. We were a little ways down. That let's say the nursery would have been kind of like all the way down at this hall. And Kara was not. She would start screaming, and this was as a baby, not as a toddler. And the joke was in the class, Tracy, that when she was down there, and you could just hear her scream. But I knew her name by the sounds that was coming out of her mouth. So what do we know? God, the name, is the God who knows us, all our good stuff, all our bad stuff. He loves, huh? The next one, and He loves us. God is the God of love. God is the God of creation. God is the God who gave His Son for our salvation. God is the God who comforts us. God is the God who is all knowing, all powerful, and all present. So when we are going to be considering the name of God, I don't know how did Eli's middle name Aaron was named after a cousin of Josh's. There is no significance to that name of it, or even the cousin's character or anything. It's just named after a family member. The name of God and names in the Old Testament were so different because they reflected character and qualities. And you look at the names of some of the, like, who was it? Book of Hosea, and Gomer was his very unfaithful wife, and had a child, and boy, they named those kids something else, reflecting on what Mama had done. So, but we're going to keep in our minds the back of the name of Yahweh. Now, the point of this one, we talk about God's name and His character doesn't change, but look at this is a list. I decided to go back and see. And don't I pick out good stuff? You don't know what it is yet. Popular names, and I pull this from the Social Security. Let me see if I can make it bigger. No, it's not going to let me make it bigger. Okay. So I did 1930, 80, 2000, and 2020. The top three names that children were named in those particular years. Rank one and rank two, the girls. Then you got the blank column. Then rank one, two, and three for boys' names. You can find this for. I deleted all these rows because you can find it going on and on and on. Look at the 1930s. So now that would have been my mom would have been. She would have been maybe 10, 12 those years in there. But look at 19. Mary, Betty, and Dorothy, or Robert, James, and John. Are those not of people in that age group? You know, a lot of these are now not living. Those are familiar names, even before that. Yeah. Now, I went to 1980. Jennifer, Kathia was born in 82. Okay. Uh, we got Jennifer, Anna, Amanda, and Jessica, Michael, Christopher, and Jason. So none of the ones in 1930 are hanging around in 1980. So there's been changes of popular names. Now, here's 2000. Names are getting a little more preppy, for want of a better word, more almost British sort of formal names. So we've got Emily, Hannah, and Madison, or Jacob, Michael, and Matthew. Any of y'all know any kids with those names? Raise your hand. Yeah, we all do. But you know people. And then 2020. Now, in 20 years, they've still changed. The 1, 2, and 3 are not the same. Olivia, Emma, and Ava, and then Liam, Noah, and Oliver. It is fascinating. Names come and go throughout all of. I should print that off and give you just a handout. I'll remember to bring that. Um, but God's name doesn't change. That's the purpose of our man made naming conventions. Change and change and change. Uh, but God's name is always the same. And therefore, the characteristics of God are always the same. Okay, so let's talk about the lineage of God's chosen people. God said to Abram in the land of Ur, get up and go, and I'm going to tell you where you're going. Would any of us, even if my sweet husband said, honey, we're going to go somewhere, and we're going to go somewhere, and we're going to stay there because I've been told to go there. Well, yeah, but we did move to we did move to Maryland, but that was just almost 30 years ago now. That was a blessing beyond. That's okay. This is where God wanted us to be, and we are confident of that. But what if He did? Okay, honey, we're going to go somewhere. We're going to pack up everything, and I'm going to ask, are you crazy? You wouldn't ask where we're going first. No, I would ask him, was he crazy because he's making that kind of decision? And asking, honey, what do you think about moving to Maryland? It was really ironic as the church was talking to us at that time. We get national, and we were living in Union, South Carolina. The church from Glen Burnie was talking to us about moving, and that month we got a National Geographic. We always got it, and one of the special articles was on Anne Arundel County and the Chesapeake Bay, and it was like, oh, is that a sign? So just hop up and move, and family and livestock and all those just supposed to come behind was a cultural thing that worked that way. So, huh? We stayed on the East Coast. There are things I don't care for in Maryland, like the tax rate, a lot of the politics. No, yeah, I will, but we were supposed to be here, and we've been blessed unmeasurably by being here. A number of people said, Tracy, y'all retired. Where are you moving to? Maryland. You weren't, no, no, our kids and our grandkids are here. I could move somewhere else. There'd be no kids and grandkids. And my question would be, why would I, what would I do? uh, travel to Maryland a lot. Huh? Yeah, yeah, the cookie lady. Okay. So Abraham was the child or the beginning of the God's covenant with Israel. Because what did God say to Abram? He wanted to make nations out of him. What else did God promise to Abraham? All the world would be blessed because of him. How many people how vast is this nation of people going to be? It's grains of sand on. So these were huge promises of God when there wasn't even a nation to promise it to. And you remember what was wrong with Abram's wife? She was barren. What's the other part related to being barren? She was old. The other part, you don't think of that. She didn't have kids when she was young, but now she was really, she was way past being able to have kids. Um, you get asked these questions. You're going to have an MRI or an X-ray. How long has it been? And I just laugh. I've been so physically old that my body systems don't quite remember. Okay, so after Abraham, the child of Abraham is Isaac. What did God do with Isaac? How God use him? Who was Isaac going to kill? Oh, Abraham was going to kill Isaac. Uh, and God says, "Don't kill your son. God's going to provide the sacrifice." So who is Isaac married to? Your memory just okay. Why can't I remember what Isaac was? Okay, Kendall, pull out your phone. I'm going to keep going. He married Rebecca. Huh? Do what? Yeah, oh, there was Rebecca and there was Leah, the two. And out of all that, I'm just, Rebecca was Jacob because they had the 12 sons and Joseph was the favorite. And the brothers got mad and sent Joseph to, well, they were going to kill him, but then they sold him into slavery in Egypt. I am sorry. I know God did stuff with Isaac, but I am just. Isaac was married to Rebecca. Okay, what did Isaac do? He'll keep looking. What, hon? He stole no, it was Jacob and Esau. So when we figure it out, I should have, as I was typing this out, I had Isaac in my head, but since you're getting older, Isaac is not around anymore. But he was part of the line of where God said, Abram, or renamed to Abraham, I am going to bless you. So now by Joseph, so where we're going to start, Joseph is in Egypt now, and how God uses Joseph in Egypt to rescue the famine that was happening to Jacob and his other brothers. So by the time we get to Joseph in Egypt and his brothers are down there, Joseph is in great favor with the Pharaoh, and Joseph and his brothers and their families are given chosen land in Egypt, the land of Goshen, fertile, the Nile Delta, all that coming through. So Joseph, powerful man in Egypt, second only to the Pharaoh. But we're going to start real quickly and look through Exodus 2. Not going to, uh, whoa, where did it go? There we go. I just want to make it bigger. So, yeah, this is, let me log in. Let me log in, see if that cleans it up. This is that Bible. Come on, probably won't pick up the thing here. It's not going to pick it up on mine. Okay. I pay extra for the extra stuff with Bible Gateway, commentaries, and such. You're supposed to be able. Mine is a touch screen. Okay, it doesn't want to touch. Here we go. Let's look real quickly. I have, okay. Just a real quick, and y'all know that the birth of Moses. We're just going to read through this quickly because then it's going to get us placed as to where we need to be. Um, Now, a man of the tribe of Levi was married to a Levite woman, okay? And she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. So, do we know the name of Moses' daddy? No. We don't know the name of Moses' mama right here. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. Why did she hide him? Why? Why were they wanting to kill the sons? Pardon? What were those Jewish people doing in Egypt right then? They were slaves. And they were very fertile slaves, for want of a better word. So he had real fears of Israel. These slaves could conquer our civilization because somebody remembered how strong they had been with the prior Pharaoh. So Israel was enslaved 70 years to give you a time span there. So when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Coated with that, what would the basket do? Float. I don't know how much it would do for the alligators in the Nile River, which there were a lot, but God's hand was on it. They wouldn't like the tar and the and the pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies. How would she know that? The blanket, and then he would have been circumcised. Um, then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, now sister's getting in the conversation here. Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. How did she know that was the baby's mother? Yeah, no, the princess did not know who the mother was. See, Moses' older sister was just kind of hanging out. I don't know if it was a place where women would go to draw water or women would go to bathe. So she was kind of positioned right there to jump into the conversation. At least is how it's written. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So now his mom is bringing him back home. So the woman, well, I shouldn't assume back to her house. Probably most likely in the palace. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Why was she willing at that point to give her son away back to the princess? where he would live. He would not be a slave. So she made a sacrifice of her heart to her son. Okay. One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. So at that time it says somebody told Moses that he was Hebrew. So I have to believe that his mama had chances to instruct him because he knows it's his own people. Looking this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Moses has just become a murderer. Do we ever think about Moses? I mean, the word is a murderer. He is, it's nice to, from the standpoint of God still uses murderers. Okay. It was a righteous killing. Okay. So now the next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" Now here comes a little righteousness. Okay. The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Somebody saw him and word spread because here, in essence, the son of Pharaoh has killed an Egyptian because he was hitting on a Hebrew. So word must have spread. Yeah, very likely he was the one. It could have been him plus any people hanging back trying to see what was going to happen, or if they were waiting to see if the Egyptian completely murdered the Hebrew, and they were waiting to take the body. Okay, when Pharaoh, then Moses was afraid and thought, what I did must have become known. Well, duh. Okay. When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. Okay, Midian, consider out in the desert. Why would he have sat down by a well? Water. Okay. Who would you tend to meet at a well? The women coming to draw water for the well. Okay. Now, a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. Some shepherds came along and drove them away, but Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. Okay. When the girls returned to rule their father, he asked them, why have you returned so early today? They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "And where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat. He might be great marriage potential." That's that little parentheses there. Okay. Yeah, when I add in stuff like that, I see God's word is incredibly holy. I think there's also some funny stuff in there as well. God does have it. He made us. Okay. Why did you leave him there? Invite him to have something to eat. So Moses agreed to stay with the man who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. I'm willing to bet Zipporah was the oldest one because she would be usually the one given out. No arrangement of love, and you know, it was what it was. Okay. Zipporah gave birth to a son and named him Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." And it's going to be fascinating to watch how God took that foreigner, brought him all the way back, and used him a way that Moses would never have imagined. Okay, now let's go back here. So these were the last couple of verses in that. Somebody want to read the white, please? Okay, I want us to look at, by the way, this king of Egypt was probably the one who wanted to kill Moses because he was gone for 40 years so that that Pharaoh could still have been alive. And I was looking at some of the lines of the different pharaohs down, all the some they were able to pinpoint exactly the beginning of the reign was from here to here. Kind of getting this far back, there was some sketchiness as to what they absolutely knew. Okay, so there's four things that shows God actions, four verbs. What's the first thing God did? He heard. Now, God had been hearing them before, but this hearing gives you a sense of this is part of the course I'm going to follow with my people. Then what did he do next? Had he forgotten it? No. Honey, would you get me up? So we have to look carefully at these verbs because it does, our English translation gives us a sense of, oh, today I remembered. Thank you. I got to remember to go online and order a couple of Christmas presents that I have yet to order. Amazon's a fine thing. I know Amazon creates different feelings for different, and I respect that. So, the third verb that God did, he he looked. And remember, not that he hadn't looked, but these verbs are charting the course of the action God has taken. And then the fourth thing he did was he was concerned. If we are concerned about something, it usually prompts us to go and do something. So God heard, he remembered the covenant, he looked and was concerned. The time was right now for God to step in and continue to achieve his plan. I found this quote on yellow on the second side, and I thought it was interesting. For when Joseph was alive and second in command, Egypt symbolized delightful food, wealth, and fatness, because you couldn't be fat, your animals couldn't be fat unless there were plenty. Instead, it now meant slave masters, forced labor, bondage. So Israel cried out to God. Israel didn't cry out to God when everything was peachy. Israel cried out to God when they were at the lowest of the low. A lot to be said like us when life's kind of knocking around pretty good. Um, Kendall had a real interesting medical situation, results of the treatment he has to get, and you were just a mess. Now, I know that you cried out to God, but you always cry out to God. So this wasn't a new thing. That was Dennis. Kendall, you don't your life is so easy for you. You never cry out for God. Not, I know some of the stuff with Kendall and challenges they've had in the past 6 to 9 months. So now, points to think about. Which is harder, physical suffering or emotional suffering? Okay. Somebody, does everybody agree with that? But what if you don't eventually heal? Okay, let me come back to that thought. Carl, you were shaking your head. Okay, yeah. It's going to impact. Absolutely. So for those of us who aren't struggling with physical issues, then emotional often becomes much more painful to deal with, especially if what is happening to someone you love, a member of your family. So some people think that God is aloof from suffering. What do these verses say about that? Is God aloof from suffering? He has his own plan. That's what gets really hard, is what is happening in God's plan. Um, at the end, I'll tell you a story, but I want it kept within the class. So remind me to tell that and ask for prayer as a result of it. So sometimes God acts alone. Does God need anybody to accomplish his will? No. God can accomplish his will without us sticking our little finger in it to make it happen because he's all powerful. But does he use other people to fulfill his purpose? Yeah, good and bad. Good and bad, yeah. Moses, the slaves of Egypt could have been freed and brought to the promised land without God involving Moses in the whole process. God chose to use a flawed man to lead a flawed people to where God wanted them to be. It's reassuring to us. We're all flawed. Some days we're more flawed than other days, but we still can be used. Okay. And I started to put this Moses and the burning bush. I started to play I've looked at the clip of what Charlton Heston and the Bible and where that very scene. I'm sorry, it was so really cheesy. The voices, I just figured a picture was enough reminder. Okay, Kendall, would you read? Start, the first scripture starts on this side. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There an angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. Do not tell me closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And at this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. So Jethro, his father-in-law, got some free labor out of him because he is now a supporter. So he's leading the flock. I mean, a, 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 a shepherd. How, in essence, the mighty have fallen from living in the palace of the Pharaoh for, I think, that the typical guess is 40 years. And now has been in the desert at least close to those 40 years. So now they're in the wilderness. If a bush was on fire in the wilderness, what would it normally do? Burn up. It would burn up. I'm sure they kept an eye out for bushes and scraggly trees because it's a place to find firewood. So he thought it was an interesting sight, but he didn't know what it meant at that point because he said, I'm going to go over and check it out. That makes sense. Now, the first thing that happens with God was he did what? Mm-hmm. What did he say? What did he say? Call them by name. In other words, this, remember, a name is a personal thing. God is saying, Moses, Moses, you pay attention to me. There could have been some other people around helping with that flock of sheep. I don't know. And Moses said, what did he respond? Here I am. Later in these scriptures, Moses is going to ask God, who are you that I can say sent me? What does God reply? I am. Here's the first one. I am. Now, Moses' reply of here I am isn't near the same as God's reply. Okay? Now, why did God tell him, take your sandals off, for this is holy ground? What is that trying to teach Moses at that point? God is holy. I'm sorry. To trust God. Okay. Prepare yourself. I'm submitted to the authority of God. If you're stopped by a police officer and he says to stick your hands out the window or whatever, show me your hands, are you going to debate that with him? No. You're going to stick your hands out the window, and if he's asking for registration, I'm going to tell him my registration is in my glove compartment, and I literally cannot reach it even if I lean over. So, you know, I submit to the authority of that police officer. I do not want to make his life any harder than it already is. Okay, now look how God identifies himself. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham. Would Joseph have known the significance of God identifying himself, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? Would Joseph know what those three things meant? Moses would, sorry. Um, how would Moses have known this? Who would have taught him? His mama would have taught these things. And look at the response of Joseph made to being confronted with the holiness of God. He hid his face. Later on, and where did he put him when God wanted? The cleft of the rock. Um, but he acknowledged the holiness and power of God. Okay, Kendall, would you do this? The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So come down and rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, a home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Those were groups of people. Consider them tribes, large tribes. So when we're looking at those, now there's a word called deism. Deism is the idea that God creates everything and just steps back and lets it function. Think of those who believe in deism consider God to be like the divine watchmaker. He makes the watch, he winds it up, and then steps back and does nothing more than the watch. Do these verses agree with the concept of a divine watchmaker? No. God is active in the lives of his people. You know, if he were that, he could have, I don't know, he could have ran the watch with Abram and then stepped back and my people just kind of figure it out until the watch runs down. Question. Going back to creation, when you say God just created, let it go. I'm saying he did not. Let it go because of what he did and gave man free will. He said, people, you now have free will. Go for it. No, I do not believe even even though there was sin in the garden and Adam and Eve chose to sin, I think we can still see his redemptive hand where, he plops in and gets Abraham and begins to work through him. And I could skip all the way over to Joseph saving the people. And now I get here to Moses. So if we look at Israel's history from a broad perspective, uh, God is not the divine watchmaker. God is the divine shepherd, the planner. This is where I want to get my all the way up through Jesus. All the way up through Jesus, and then the church. Not a divine watchmaker. So I want to bring them out of the land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. When you describe a land flowing with milk and honey, why are those two foods important? What does it say about the land? Fertile. It's fertile. How fertile is it? That land is so fertile the cows can be happy. Huh? Huh? The bees would be happy because they're going to provide a substance that sweetens life and makes it better. And I'm sure there were vegetables and other things roaming around. It met all of their needs. So I got a picture there of a commissioning service. It's fascinating if you go online and look for pictures of commissioning services. There's all different kinds. I had to look at and I think, oh, what are they commissioning? So now, go. He did not they. So now, think about it. Do you tell the difference? It was very sweet. The cop tells you, get out of the car. No, we're not going to argue that. We're not going to debate it. We're not going to say, I didn't do anything. I'm going to get out of the car. A lot of people don't know. I know. They want to be on the cop show. But in the same thing, so now go. Here's your commissioning service. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Okay? If you look at that, that is the order. Go. And here is the purpose for the order. You're going to go get my people out of Egypt. I'm going to use you, and then you're going to try and get out as quick as you can. He does. He didn't want to do that. And tell us to do that's part of life. Yeah, that is part of life. Okay, military. Was that not a sweet experience? Because not only is he being commissioned to signify his rank, he is promising something. He has an order to follow. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to stop right here because this is a good place to stop, and then we'll look at finishing more of this next week with Exodus chapter 3. I like to dig into stuff and find the stuff that maybe we hadn't ever thought about before. But I will bring y'all all the names next week, and I will bring you that history that I found of when the nation of Israel quit standing as its own independent nation. That's a better way to phrase it, Kendall, since you told me. So I'm going to turn this off real quick.